Welcome again into our second Sunday of the wonderful Don Miguel Ruiz's Four Agreements. Oh my goodness me, when I read that book, it is so simple but so demanding. He doesn't hold any punches, and the standard he holds us to is amazing. And there's no ifs, ands, and buts about his message. And nothing and no one is let off the hook. Because what he presents to us is the way to spiritually become conscious and to be the best of ourselves. Because when we are the best of ourselves, we are always in celebration. And we always feel good about life and living and everything in it, regardless of the good, bad, and the ugly. It doesn't move us and it doesn't trouble us. The second agreement, he says, is born out of the first, as are the others as well. And the first one is to be impeccable with your word. Extremely challenging. And the second one is equally challenging, in my opinion. And the second one is, don't take things personally. There's not one of us in this room that doesn't take things personally. We all have taken things personally. We continue to take things personally. And it is just so not good for us. Because when we do that, we're opening ourselves up to what is not pleasant, to say the least. When we do that, Don Miguel tells us that we are putting ourselves into hell. That's the words he uses. You're putting yourself into hell when you take things personally, and as any of us might imagine, it's not an easy way to live in hell. And he says what happens is that the heat rises in you when you begin to take offense, when you begin to decide in your mind whether you have the facts upon which to build this. You decide in your mind that you have been offended, you've been hurt, you have been disregarded, and whatever else it is that we feel when we take things personally. The heat rises within us, and we create a fiery conflagration of resentment and anger and bitterness. And that's one side of it, or the other side of it is we go into that icy coldness of sadness and sorrow and pain. And we sit there and we allow ourselves to go into that icy coldness that can paralyze us. And both ways are equally sources of causing us pain, he says, and suffering. Both ways. So we can continue to do that, take everything personally, and make that decision and be upset with ourselves and all of life besides. And we can go on accusing and blaming and whatever else it is we do. We all do things differently as we take things personally. But whatever that is, that throws us into self-righteousness. That makes us put on the armor, the battle armor. We take up the sword, we take up the shield, and we go to war. And it's not good for us, and it's not good for our world. And it doesn't, certainly it stops and blocks our flow of being okay within ourselves and being okay with everybody else too. It's so insidious, it's hardly noticeable sometimes. Some of us are so prone to taking everything personally, and Don Miguel calls that personal importance. He said when you take things personally, it's personal importance you're going into, and that means that you think it's all about you. You've decided that the world is, not with you, and how dare the world treat you this way, that way, or the other. Doesn't the world know who I am and what I do and and all the rest of it? And does the world not know how wonderful I am and how generous I am and how kind I am? And so this is his words. As I say, he doesn't hold his punches. He says it's all about you. He says even when people say to me, Miguel, you have hurt me, I don't take it seriously. He says, because I know my words haven't hurt, What has happened is the words have triggered the wounds within the individual, and they're responding to that collective pain and that collective hurt, whether they know it or not, and that's what's hurting them. It's not me. And he said, it's not, I don't take it personally, not because I don't love the person, I don't trust the person, I don't believe in the person. I don't take it personally because I know that person, or them, if it's a group, are in their own story, they're in their own dream, they're in their own agreements, they're in their own world perception, they're in their own point of view, and it's not the same as mine. It's not mine, it's theirs. He says that we are not responsible for anyone, that we're each responsible for ourselves. And it's sometimes it's hard to take this in a way that causes you to say right away, oh yeah, he's absolutely right, and I'm going to stop this nonsense now, and I never again take anything personally. I never will, he's right. And there's something in our minds that says, yeah, he is right, but there's something in our emotional body that we have brought into our physical body through cellular remembrances that says, he doesn't know what he's talking about. That's a load of baloney. I have every right to be upset. I have every right to be hurt. I have every right to be indignant. I have every right to feel resentment. If only people knew what has happened to me and blah, 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 blah. And that's where we go. And that's a perfectly valid choice. But it's one that's going to keep us stuck and suspicious of each other, and keep us creating stories in our minds about he, she, them, that is not based on truth. And it's not even based on fact sometimes. It's just a story I get. Somebody can come to me and tell me, oh, be careful with her, be careful with him, because blah, blah, let me tell you, blah, blah. And before I even know the person, I've made a decision in my mind, I've come to an agreement about that person. And I'm influenced by that, I'm colored by that, if I'm not careful. If I'm not understanding, as Don Miguel says, whenever a person insults you or hurts you, or he says, even if they take a gun to your head and shoot you, don't take it personally. Those are his words. He says, don't take it personally. It's their stuff. It's not yours. He implies they're not shooting you because you're a bad person or whatever. They're shooting you because really and truly their ire is up in that particular moment. And so what he's saying is that people do this. We all take things personally because of fear. He says fear is the basis of it all. Fear is the basis of it all. Fear that we're not being heard. Fear that we're not being recognized. Fear that we're being excluded. Or fear that we're not enough. And that if we don't scramble for whatever it is we think we're entitled to, then, you know, we're not being understood. We're not being heard, received, listened to. These are the hard facts in that chapter, and I believe every chapter is going to present to us hard facts, hard truths. But he says, when you get it, life becomes so much more radiant and joyful and beautiful, and you become so much more productive, and you become so much more a gracious presence on this plane that uplifts. And that, he says, won't happen until you first heal your own wounds. Now, I find within myself that when I'm happy and well, when I feel strong and confident, when I feel empowered, when I am in that sense of sacred service, I can make a difference. wherever I am. I can't do everything, but there's something, as that lovely expression says, I can do. And what it is that I can do, I should do and must do. And when I'm in that frame of reference, it's very easy not to take things personally, because I am centered, I'm integrated, and I'm aligned. I'm aligned. Now, when I'm aligned, I won't take anything personally. On the other hand, if I'm tired and weary and sicky and, not taking proper care of myself and my energy is low and so on, the odds are I will take something personally, because I'm not as focused and I'm not as aligned as I could be. So you and I are asked this week to make a decision around all of this. Are we going to continue to take everything personally and stay stuck in self-importance and self-righteousness that serves nothing and no one, far less each one of us? Or am I going to rise above it and say, this does not move me, because it's not about me in this moment now. It's about the other and where they are and what they're feeling and what their movie is. He talks about a movie. He talks about us all having this movie in our mind as a result of the agreements we have made with regard to how we are, how life is, and how everything is, and everyone else is too. And that we think and we feel and we act from the movie that we have conjured up in our minds. And he said within the movie, we're the producer, we're the director, and we are the lead actor. And there's no one else can change the movie except you and except me. It's just really bread and butter stuff he's offering us today. There's no caviar in there, I can tell you, and no dessert. It's all bread and butter stuff. It's hard, hard truth that he's calling us to. I had an experience this morning, a situation. And I think to myself, God, you must be joking. You have to be kidding. Here I am all week thinking about the fourth agreement, not taking things personally, and endeavoring to not take things personally. So I have a real opportunity this morning when somebody shares something with me, not in a very sweet way, I have to say, but I understand it, and I have no criticism about it. I'm just saying it was my opportunity to not take it personally. And it's like God saying, now put that in your pipe and smoke it. Let's see how seriously you were during the week when you were thinking in terms of being as practiced as you could be and not taking things personally. Listen, people, I am a human being like everybody else. I do agree to make an endeavor to be the best that I can be, but there are times when I too will forget. And of course, being in my position, people have a sense that you cannot step out of line ever. Ever. There's a short rein on that one. You must not step out of line. And that's just so not true. Every master, every teacher I know stepped out of line. And sometimes they did it deliberately to test us. When I was in the convent and in the ashram, people were deliberately unkind or whatever, just to see how centered you were in yourself and how much self-awareness you had and how much self-control you had, and to see how you could cope with the ideas and the opinions of the outside world, which should not disturb you if you are truly serious about your spiritual unfoldment. It's hard. It's very hard. And you think, where I go with that is always, oh my God, don't they know that I absolutely love and cherish every single one here? Every single day I'm praying, I'm knowing the highest and the best, good. I could go into all of that. What's the matter with them? Don't they know? I mean, what do I have to do to prove it? But I stopped doing that. I've stopped doing that because I have now come to this awareness, this great compassion for us all, because we all make mistakes and we all fall asleep and we all are contending with aligning the humanity of ourselves with the divinity of ourselves, and it's challenging. It's downright challenging. And if you fall asleep for a minute, I tell you, that old trickster, Larry, is up on your back. We used to call, it was a nice name for whatever it was that was leading you into temptation. We'd be told, oh, Larry is up on your back, child, now. Apologies to all the Larrys. It's not, don't take it personally. Don't take it personally. So I decided to make Larry my friend. Say, okay, all right, bring it on, Larry, but you're not having your way with me. And so I don't get disturbed about that, except rarely. Except rarely. And you see, when you're practicing not taking things personally, when you do, it's even deeper. It's even deeper. It's more painful. And then you say to yourself, oh my gosh, I didn't learn much of anything at all. And then you stop it and you say, oh yes, you have. See, here's the thing about the spiritual life, and I can't tell you, I have to give it to you straight. If you seriously are showing up here to become the best of yourself and to come home to yourself or any spiritual community, you are going to find that you will be tested. Not deliberately, it's just life happening the way it happens. And you will find things that irritate you and annoy you and upset you and cause you to have all kinds of crazy ideas that are not true. And then it's up to us to contend with that. Now, when I was in high school teaching, when I come into the classroom sometimes, the children, the teenagers would say, I was teaching high school students and the senior year, and they'd sometimes say, oh, scary, Miss Fox, scary. Now, they weren't talking about the fact that I was scary. They were talking about the fact that they liked what I was wearing. And that was the lingo then. But I have had, you know, some formidable people say to me, I remember once was a very eminent priest, and I was at a retreat with my youngsters, my teenagers, and he did say, he said, you know, he said, Myron, you're very formidable. I said, really? I said, tell me, why am I formidable? And I said, well, you know, I get a sense around you that, you know, you have to measure up. I said, well, I'm sorry about that if that's what you feel, but that's the sense I have about myself. I have to measure up. And I said, yeah, when it comes to playing by the rules, I like to play by the rules. If this is the way it's supposed to be, this is the way it's supposed to be. If this is what's going to help me and everybody else and me, then why wouldn't we play by the rules? Why is it we want to play our own way with our own individual rules? And we talked, and then we ended up laughing and laughing, and we became the best of friends. And it was just that he had formed an image of me, and we laugh to this day when we meet each other and say, oh my God, you remember the time when I thought you were blah, 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 blah? I said, yeah, that's because you didn't know me. And see, we make up our mind about people that we don't know, and it's not true. So I'd be the first to say to you, I'm not perfect, anything but I'll tell you this, I do my very best to stay on track. I do my very best to be the best that I can be. And some days that's terrific, and some days it's not good enough. But that's the way it is. But even at that, I'll say to myself, okay, so you blew it. You won't blow it the next time. And another thing about complaints and all of that, if you wait until everything is about to blow up and explode, and the heat has risen to that conflagration and fire, and then you come and share something, it's not going to be pretty. And as I say to some folk who come at that stage, how can I make any difference? How can I do anything about what I don't know? What I'm not aware of? So the first thing to do in your life and in my life is, if we think we have a thing going on between us and anybody else and the energy is not right, we go to the person, we say, you know, I might be imagining it, but I seem to sense that, you know, the energy between us is not that great. In the incipiency of something, before it gets to the point where you're taking everything personally and you've moved into personal importance. That works. That works. But see, we in California are not like the people in New York. If you're in New York, you'll know exactly how people are feeling. They'll let you know. Here, what we do is we put up for it for a certain length of time and then we disappear. We don't say anything. Not to the people concerned. We talk amongst ourselves and we scatter the dissension amongst ourselves, but not to the people who can make a difference and the people who can do something about it. We just disappear. That's how we are in California. California, we disappear. New York, we're in your face. So what's it going to be, my dear, in this week of love, in this week that we're committed to particularly looking at what love is all about? And God knows it's certainly not about what all the Valentine commercialism is about. It's not about that, but it's a lovely opportunity to think in terms of where I stand in that. And do I really love everybody? You know, do I? Do I really love everything in the world? Do I really want to be that person that can do that? Or would I rather hold on to my own skewed beliefs and self-righteousness and resentments and blame and think I'm going to feel good as a result of that? I can't. It's impossible, because it's not godly and it's not of the Spirit and it's not anything to do with our true nature and the essence of love. So, my dear ones, all this is about today is all of us together making an endeavor, you hear me say it over and over again, to create a safe place here for people to be in and not have them bombarded with all the disgruntlement and discontentedness that we seem to think is happening and going on and blah, 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 blah. I expect of myself, and I expect of each one of you, when you walk through those doors, to be all that you can be, in the awareness that everybody that crosses your path is Christed and deserves to be received and deserves to be welcomed and deserves to be honored. And that's our endeavor, always. At times we'll fall short and we have to be okay with that. But we can't hold grudges and grouses. It's not the way to create a difference. We share how we're feeling and we get to the root of it, and we're open-hearted when we share. We're not already cut off. We're not already fully absolute and decided in the way everything is, but we're open. We have an open mind and an open heart, and we're just sharing how it is without making pronouncements and judgments of how we think it is. But saying, look, here's what I think, here's what I feel, here's what's going on in me. Is there any truth to it? Are there any grounds to it? Is there something happening, you know, that's causing this? And just to respect and honor each other enough to have that conversation. It's hard. It's very hard to do. It's very hard to do because we're not really sure and we are afraid, because when we're disgruntled, we're afraid. When we're resentful, we're afraid. When we're disconnected, we're afraid. It's fear always at the basis of everything. Because if I felt strongly enough about myself, if I was self-assured enough and self-confident enough and self-centered in spirit enough, it wouldn't matter to me. I wouldn't care. I wouldn't need your approval. I wouldn't need anything from you. I would be here rather to give to you and bring to you, rather than take something from you or need something from you. Now that's a very high teaching, and you hear me say that all the time. This is a high teaching. There's no getting away from it. That's why people come and go all the time, and the few stay, because they get it. They come when they're in need, they want something, they get it. They come when they need the support and the help, they want it, they get it. But then when they've gotten it and they're through it, and then they have to stand up in the teaching and be more than they are themselves, it can be difficult, and off they go, and I understand it. And then they'll come back, and then they'll go, and they'll come back, and they'll go. And some will not come back, because it's just too much. Well, I'm saying to each and every one of you that it's not too much for you, that you are quite able and quite equal to living your best life, and to living a life that is uplifting and transforming, not only to you, but to everybody else around you, because we know that we are here to serve. We are here to give. We are here to put in. We are here to make the difference, and the difference can only be made from a loving heart, an open mind, and a giving spirit. Oh my goodness, look at all the great teachers and masters, how they suffered the slings and arrows of the world that didn't understand them. How badly they were treated, and yet they never, ever changed. They stayed centered. As in the case of Jesus, nothing moved him. Nothing moved him. And all he would do and say and believe and feel is, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. And God help us, we don't know what we do when we're in that state of being. We've no clue of the havoc it wreaks upon ourselves. It's always upon ourselves, not upon the other people. Read that chapter, chew it, digest it, be equal to it, be able for it. Know that this is personally being spoken to you, and that it's been spoken to you because you're ready now for the next level, because of the who you are, the what you are, and the whose you are, and that will never change. So know. It's not enough to know it in your mind, but feel it in your heart. You are always loved, cherished, given to, provided for, taken care of by that which created you and moved into you and lives in you and is open to you, expressing as much of that goodness and greatness that you will choose to allow. Let us all in this coming week make new agreements that honor the power and the presence of the living life of Spirit within us, so that we can be the best that we can be. And so it is.